Alright, what's going on, guys and girls? How is it going? I'm Is There No One Else, and I am bringing you the 6.0.2 patch notes. They're pretty short and to the point. Normally I don't do patch notes on videos like this, but there are a lot of substantial changes that I kind of wanted to talk about with you guys because, they're important. Before I dive into that, I've had a lot of people asking me about, what I do with specific builds and, what I'm going to do for this next patch, which I totally get. There's a lot of stuff coming up. People have those questions. I've learned with the patch notes that I don't normally craft a build until about week 3 or week 4 of the PTS. We're on week 3 now, so I'm going to start looking into theory crafting. Stuff changes too drastically. Sometimes stuff gets it comes out that it's too powerful, and you try to craft a build around it, and then they nerf it, and then you're not going to run the set anymore. So I don't waste my time. I think it's a waste of time personally to try and come up with a build before week 3. But we are on week 3 now, so I'm going to start looking at set combinations and everything and trying to come up with, my own personal builds and what I'm going to be running on different classes starting this week. So just want to let you guys know that in general because I've been getting the question asked enough that I wanted to get that out for you guys. But yeah, let's dive into the patch notes. So there's not a ton in here. We got Somerset Celebration. We got new motifs, exploration and itemization, dungeon and group content. I think it's right past this. I read these earlier, and they're pretty interesting. So, monsters and NPCs, UI, quests and zones, Nightblade. Here we go. Veiled Strike, which is surprise attack and concealed weapon. This ability and its morphs now stun and set targets off balance when used from the flank of an enemy rather than when you are stealthed or invisible. This change was done to offset the loss of the ability to activate this portion of the attack with the recent fixes to heavy attacks properly breaking invisibility. So, I know some people might be. I mean, this is a buff to Nightblades. This is a pretty big buff to Nightblades. But using concealed weapon or surprise attack from stealth, coming from somebody that's tried to do that a lot, like I've tried to make melee magblades work, there are so many classes and skills and abilities that just have AoEs on them. It's really hard to get the concealed weapon or surprise attack stun from stealth. It's, if there's a Stam Sork in the group, they're going to pull you out of stealth. If they're running the other morph of Purify, it's going to pull you out of stealth. If they're running, if it's a Templar and they have the other morph of Dark Flare, which typically one of them does, it's going to pull you out of stealth. Like there's a lot of skills and abilities that do that, and ground-based abilities, and it's really tough to try and utilize a skill as a proper stun. And so that's part of the issue with melee magblade specifically, is that you don't get the stun this way that often. You really have to find somebody off kind of by themselves, like away from the group, in order to pull it off. But yeah, this is a good change. This is actually a huge change. So it stuns and sets target off balance when used from the flank of an enemy. So those roly-poly dodging Nightblades are now going to be able to set you off balance. This basically makes Fear obsolete on a Nightblade as it currently stands. Like, Fear was all. There were some people running Fear. There were some people running Mass Hysteria, but Mass Hysteria is now more of a base, defensive thing than anything. Like, if you can now surprise attack somebody from their shoulder or back, and you're going to stun them and set them off balance to where you can hit them with 10% more damage, that's way better than trying to use a global cooldown. So this is a pretty big change. This also means that you don't have to scale into the Tactician passive. Tactician passive is 120 points in the blue tree in the middle of the C champion points. So that means you can go into more direct damage and more critical damage and, buff your burst combination more. So this is actually a pretty substantial buff for Nightblades. Doesn't mean your entire combination is going to land, because you still have a cast time on the ultimate, and then you have a delayed fuse on your spectral bow. But this is a huge change. The stun and set off balance is going to be very powerful on Nightblades. And I'll have to test it more. I'll obviously be testing this because I play Nightblade too, and see exactly how strong it is. But yeah, I mean like I said, the concealed weapon surprise attack from stealth, it used to exist and function pretty well, but now there's just so many AoE abilities it really doesn't. Like, there's so much stuff that can pull you out of stealth, you really don't get to utilize that stun. So yeah, big buff for Nightblade. Big buff for Nightblade. Psijic Order Acceleration, Channeled Acceleration, fixed an issue with the timing and the visual effects of this ability when used with a two-handed weapon. Oh, okay. I shouldn't have even read that. I'm sorry, guys. Werewolf Transformation, fixed an issue where other players in werewolf form could appear to use emotes while opening menus. Okay. Okay, that's just itemization and item sets. Bloodhounds Embrace. The set now grants 1,535 magicka when it procs, up from 685. This will allow the set to be much stronger for targets who do not block frequently, while still ensuring it grants a sizable return for those who block off the 250 millisecond cost cooldown. So this is a weird set, and I haven't come out with a gear set review on Bloodhounds Embrace. For those of you guys that don't know, Bloodhounds Embrace is one of the new mythic item sets. It's the heavy chest piece, and it's when you bash an enemy, when they do damage to you, you can gain 685 magic per second. And so now they've upped it to 1535, so that basically is the equivalent of like 3,000 magic recovery. You know, the amount of magic you get if you block it for 2 seconds, it's 3,000 magic, which is a lot, obviously. But it's a very unique set, and I was looking at it and I was trying to figure out how I was going to incorporate it on builds, and I was having a hard time. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I was having a hard time figuring out how I was gonna use it, and then somebody brought up a good point that it's gonna be really good in dueling, because in dueling, I don't think you can purge this bash, and so whoever you're fighting in a 1v1 situation, you're going to be able to bash them. They're going to have this, and anytime you block their incoming attacks, you're going to get this boost of magicka. And you know, anytime they drop a meteor, they hit you with your full burst combo. If you block part of it, or if you're blocking to recover afterwards, you're going to get the magicka back. And so in those ways, it's going to be very strong. You know, I talked to a little bit on the previous patch notes when this first came out that, you know, I kind of saw it as like a healer set. You know, it'd be very effective on a healer because you're going to be beat on anyways. And if there's somebody in front of your face just trying to kill you because you're the healer and you have to die first, you can quick bash them and you can basically get magicka back to recover. So in those situations, I think it would be very beneficial. But I feel like people are going to get smart, you know, if that makes sense. But it's still going to be effective. But like if I was in a 3-man group, you know, and we see a healer, and the healer bashes me, and I see I have this proc condition on me, I'm not going to attack them. You know, I'm going to kind of back up, and I'm going to basically attack somebody else until their block is dropped, and then I'll just drop my ultimate once their block is dropped, you know, and kind of approach it that way. Basically just prevent them from getting the magicka recovery that they were hoping to get from me. But that's kind of, I'm not saying that everybody's going to be able to do that. So it's very interesting. Obviously, mag DKs, we're going to be able to utilize it because you're blocking a lot. You're blocking a lot of incoming damage. This is going to help a ton with sustain. Like, this is going to be a very good mag DK set. Plus, with, you know, activating ultimates giving you stamina recovery, you'll be able to actually bash people. You know, you're in melee range anyway. So I could see this working very well. This is a huge buff in general, and it's going to make blocking builds a lot more powerful. You know, like a block casting mag DK with this set, it looks really good. Like, you're going to be able to block and then you get all this recovery. Like, potentially, if you're fighting outnumbered and people don't know how this set works, it could be very good. But it's got a very weird condition. You know, I'm still just, all these mythics are really powerful, and like I said yesterday, I'm not trying to say that any of them are overpowered, because mythics are in their own tier of strength. You know, all of them are very powerful. And so this does look very strong, but is it more strong than Malakath? Is it more strong than the Tonal Constancy Ring? Is it more powerful than the Snow Treader's Boots? I don't know. You know, those are the things I guess I'm going to have to test and look at and come out with a review on. But yeah, this is a very unique set that's going to be good on a few specific types of builds. Malakath's Band of Brutality. The set no longer allows arterial bursts to critically strike. Alright, we tested that a couple weeks ago. It's a good change. Merciless Charge. This set now continuously activates from Stampede through bar swap. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. Set now continuously activates from Stampede through bar swap. So that's the 2H VMA. So when you bar swap, did you lose the Merciless Charge, like ground AoE? Is that what they're trying to say, and now it doesn't? I'm not sure. I'll go look at that, guys. But I did a video a couple weeks ago talking about how gap closers just aren't very good. If you guys want to check that out, you can find it. In general, I find gap closers to just not be very good in open world PvP. They're just not very effective. And so running a set that gives you a proc condition like this still doesn't make it very good, in my opinion. I don't think it's worth running this, even if this change comes into place. So let's move on. Spectral Cloak. This set now persists its refresh capabilities while bar swapping. Due to the large amount of effective power this allows you to keep up potentially indefinitely, we'll closely monitor how this affects the total power engagement and will address it accordingly. Okay, so Spectral Cloak, I just did this video a couple days ago. It's the Black Rose dual wield. And while you're on the Black Rose dual wield bar, whenever your blade cloak fires, which is every couple of seconds, you get 2 seconds of 10% damage and 10% damage mitigation. And it was interesting because you could only utilize it on your dual wield bar. So if I switched to my 2H bar and my blade cloak procced, I was not taking advantage of the Black Rose dual wield setup. And so it got brought up, incorrectly. This makes a lot of sense to me, and I agree. This is one of the few sets that doesn't transfer over to the other bar. So like you look at the VMA Destro Staff, when you put Wall of Elements down your light attacks, on your other bar, get a boost. When you use Poison Injection from a Master's Bow, your attacks on your front bar get that 300, weapon damage boost from Poison Arrow. All these sorts of things, come into play. If you use VMA Dual Wield, which nobody does anymore, but your back bar dots, that can be used with the VMA Dual Wield, were getting buffed by VMA when it was a popular set. So Spectral Cloak was in its own... Black Rose Dual Wield was in its own tier on sets that were only functioning on one bar. And I didn't think it was bad. Because it's like, yeah, you're getting a ton by being on that bar. You're getting 10% damage and 10% damage mitigation, but you have to use dual wield skills, so it's going to be very specific. It was still going to be powerful, but it made sense that this adjustment was made. But I do think that 10% more damage and 10% damage mit is a lot for a two-piece set. Especially now that you can just run dual wield, and while you're in fighting somebody, you can go over your D-swing bar, and you're going to still proc the set. As long as you're in melee range, melee builds can have this with, 100% uptime. You can have this set condition. As long as you're firing and you keep your blade cloak up, you're going to have 10% damage and 10% damage mit on top of the sets that you're running. This is going to be very, very powerful. And I wouldn't be surprised if it gets adjusted. Like, I would be very surprised if it didn't get adjusted from this, because we're talking about 5-piece Essence Thief. We all know how powerful Essence Thief is as far as the damages. The proc conditionality is what kind of holds Essence Thief back a little bit, having to go and pick up the Essence. But in dueling and small-scale situations, it's a very good set. This is essentially that, and as long as you're in melee range, you're just going to proc it. It's like a 7-meter radius or 4-meter radius, some 7-meter diameter, I think. Something like that. It's got a pretty big AoE. So as long as you're in D-swing range, you're going to get this buff. So I think it's a good change, but I do think it's going to get another adjustment. And I think that that adjustment will be justified, just from initially looking at it on paper. Why would you run a bow? Why would you run a Master's Bow when you can run Spectral Cloak, get more damage mitigation? You have access to Major Expedition via Deadly Cloak. Like, there's no point in running a bow. You just run dual wield, because it's going to give you way more damage. It's going to give you more... It's just a better set. So, yeah, moving on. Stun's Favor. This set now grants 53-12 physical and spell penetration for 10 seconds when you damage an off-balance enemy, rather than passively granting 11,000 of each versus off-balance targets. This allows the set to be reined in much tighter in power by not being bound to the off-balance cooldown, since it can refresh at any time you meet the conditions, similar to Armor of Truth. Okay. This is a huge change, so it's a 10-second proc with a lot of pen. Like, I know this looks like a lot, and I've done testing. I posted a test last week, and 2 weeks ago, and I'm not going to do another one. I don't think I'm going to go test it on my own and see exactly how it works now with its new proc conditions. But 2 weeks ago at 13.5k pen, and it was roughly 17% better. Last week, it dropped down to 11.5, so it was like 2,000 less, and it was still 14% better. So we're losing, you know, 6K-ish pen, and so that's going to turn out to, you know, 9% less damage. So we're going to have roughly 5% more damage in a burst window than New Moon Acolyte, 5 to 6%, you know. So it's still going to be better as a front bar set than New Moon, because without the cost increase and all those other sorts of things and the burst window, you're going to do more damage with this. But it's reined in a lot more, a lot more. I'm not surprised that it got adjusted. I talked about this 2 weeks ago. I really liked where it was. You know, I really liked where it was. I liked how they were toning it back against, like, essentially any medium or light armor build was getting overpenned anyways, and the set didn't mean anything. People are actually going to be tankier in medium and light armor with stun at 11K because you were better off using New Moon. But yeah, I mean, this is still a good damage set. I'll double check to confirm, but this is still good. It's just, you know, it started at 13.5 and now it's at 5,300. So that's a pretty substantial adjustment over 2 weeks of the PTS. That's why I talk about these things, guys, and why I say don't overreact to the first couple weeks of the PTS. You know, if you're, you know, you get it all the time. You have people that'll go, oh, I'm quitting the game, this is BS, yada, you know, and if you're quitting the game over a week 1 PTS change, that, you know, that's, I don't think you should do that. If you're going to quit the game because it's just not fun, or it's laggy, or you're having a hard time playing the game, that makes sense to me. You know, like, you quit because of that reason. But week 1 and week 2 of the PTS, so much stuff is subject to change. Like, this was looking like everybody was upset about the set, and now it's getting put in line with everything else. So let's move on. Thracian Stranglers, the pride and joy that I've been trying to work on for the last couple of weeks on my streams. The set now decreases your healing taken and effectiveness of damage shields by 2% per stack, as well to increase the risk of constantly staying at high stacks. So it decreases your healing taken by up to 30%. Right? 2% per stack, there's, well, 40%, sorry. 40% less healing taken for Thracian. Please note the set still has the opt-out mechanic of activating crouch or visibility to immediately remove your stacks to remove these dangerous debuffs in a moment where your character might otherwise die. So this was fun to test. I was having a lot of fun trying to figure this out, and I was on the right path, and I still don't think it was going to be good enough. I am not saying that this set is dead, because there's a few other things I have to test, but it's pretty close. Like in PvP, I don't know, guys. You're going to take 40% more damage with 40% less healing taken. That is a lot for 3,000 spell damage. And as much as I wanted to try and use the 3,000 spell damage, like 40% damage taken was enough in PvP. I don't. There's a few classes that I want to try this on, you know, to see if they'll work, but it's very specific to a few classes. But yeah, that's a pretty huge change. The PvE guys were having some fun with this, and it makes sense, you know, like in PvE with good healers, this was going to just boost scores like crazy. Like if you can stay out of AoEs like what you should be, you know, who cares if you take a little bit more damage? You know, you could stack in a little bit more health. You could run 20, 21, 22, 23k health, and with this 3,000 spell damage, you're going to offset the damage that you were giving up anyways, you know? So just to give you that little extra window so you don't get bursted. But yeah, we'll test that as well, see what's happening. Winter's Respite, the set now properly functions with Necromancer tethers. Okay. Zon's fixed an issue if this set proc burning, the damage increase would also apply to the status effect. Okay. Battlegrounds, Mid-Year Mayhem, Achievements, General, Monsters, UI. That's it. So not a ton, obviously. Not a ton of changes, but they're pretty substantial. Stun got a pretty big nerf. It's still going to be one of the best burst window sets in the game, just due to what it gives. I mean, that pen is still going to be valuable. It's just not as valuable as it was. Nightblade's got a huge buff. Yeah, so we're getting to the point where we're winding down on the PTS, and you know, some changes will still come in, but you're seeing that the patch notes are getting smaller and smaller. And yeah, like I said, I will start looking at how I'm going to theory craft around different builds for mythic item sets and stuff, and I'll kind of post my thoughts on that. So that's going to be the end of this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please provide it in the section below. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.